this isn't a section of parables. Okay? So you'd have to think that, and listen, there's what are parables? Parables are word pictures, stories, analogies that depict like a bigger truth.
So you think this is this is a parable? Is that what you're saying?
I do think this is a parable, and I think like in context, it's obvious that it's a parable. And that's why, I mean, if we read it, maybe you'd pick up on it. But let me read a little bit of the notes here from Abraham's bosom, okay? Abraham's bosom, only appears one time in the Bible. It's in Luke 16, 19 through 31. In context, likely a parable. It refers to a place of comfort before the resurrection, okay? It's not heaven. It's not heaven, but a separate waiting place for the righteous. The parable of Lazarus and the rich man was not a novel tale. There are similar stories circulating during the Second Temple period, especially in Jewish apocryphal texts and wisdom literature. But Jesus' version is unique in its characters, details, and purpose. So this is why I think it's a parable. This idea or this like narrative of Lazarus, a rich man dying, and then punishment and reward in the afterlife in a separated conscious waiting place. Jesus didn't make that up. There's other stories going on in the Second Temple era, and even before that, even in the Egyptian times, of this exact story. So is it likely that there was a real man named Lazarus and there was a real rich man, and that Jesus is quoting like a story that he knows about? Or I'm sorry, he's quoting like real events that transpired? Or is he painting a word picture, telling a parable to talk about how important your decisions in life are because there's no going back after death? Because that's what the other tales did that are similar to Lazarus's parable.
So let me make a comment on this. So it's been debated, is this a parable or not? And I'll just read a comment here. Most modern Bible scholars, teachers like R.C. Sproul and Matthew Henry, generally treat it as a parable. So most modern Bible scholars. Now, there is conservative theologians and literal interpreters who argue this is an actual account because Lazarus is the only named character in any of Jesus's parables, which would be unusual. And Jesus
Do you know what the word Lazarus means? You know how names have meanings?
Mm-hmm. I don't know what it means.
Lazarus, I believe, means God is help or something like that. I remember reading it actually earlier today, and I was like, oh, interesting. But okay.
God has helped, whom God helped. And then Jesus does not begin with the typical parable language like the kingdom of heaven is like. So this is what some theologians are saying that are more like literal interpreters. So, but it's been debated. But again, like most modern Bible scholars will agree with you as far as this being a parable. See, that's a big deal though to me. Mm-hmm. Because if you treat it as a parable, it's a whole different story. But if you treat it, as like a literal story, then that changes everything again. Then you start bringing it up. So I think that's where the problem is on this, because this is a clear one. Everyone talks about everyone brings this passage up, right?
Abraham's bosom.
Yeah, I've done it.
You know what else? Dots are connected. You know how earlier we were talking about like, hey, when you connect certain passages together and you don't understand them properly, you can see how people have gotten to where we are today, like in Christianity about the afterlife. Yeah. This is a big one.
This is a big one, yeah.
This is the passage that people will use when they say like, oh, he descended and led captives free and this and that. They refer to Abraham's bosom. They actually think that that's what it's referring to. This is the place after the resurrection of Christ that people were led out of. They're the captives. Yeah, but you're in Abraham's bosom. That's not a place of captivity. It's a place of peace. It's a place of comfort. You're with the patriarchs. You're with the forefathers. You know what I'm saying? So putting this in with those other passages about leading captives free and gospel being proclaimed to the dead, Those are the dots they're connecting, which are completely unrelated. Completely unrelated. So look, here's some examples. The Egyptian tale of Setme and Kamaus is in the first millennium BC, popular Hellenistic Egypt. A rich man and a poor man die, and the roles are reversed in the afterlife. The tale may have influenced Jewish Hellenistic thinking in Egypt, including the Book of Wisdom and Philo. In 1 Enoch 22, 3rd century to 1st century BC, describes separate compartments in Sheol for the righteous and wicked. There's a chasm between these compartments, and the wicked cannot cross to the righteous side. The Apocalypse of Zephaniah, 1st century BC. The rich are shown in torment, the poor or righteous are comforted. The narrative is highly visual and moralistic, emphasizing justice and reversal. For Ezra, in the 1st century, contains afterlife contrasts between the righteous and the wicked. It echoes the themes of reversal and fate based on earthly actions. Those are just 4 examples. There was more of similar stories that the Jews at the time of Christ's presence on earth would have been familiar with. And Jesus takes a very similar story, adds a few key details like the name Lazarus, and uses it to teach his audience that, like, hey, you got to make your decisions now because there's no going back after death, you know? So how about this? Were these other accounts that were not inspired, were they also describing true events? They're describing the same thing. They're describing the same afterlife, Dennis, the geography, a separated waiting place, post-mortem, with a chasm between that the evil can't cross. Who revealed that? Who revealed that to them?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Where did they get that revelation from, this truth? And how come the Old Testament, nobody in the Old Testament describes the afterlife like this? It's only found one place, and that's in Luke 16, in the parable, likely, of Lazarus and the rich man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it would make sense that that's a parable. It makes a lot of sense.
So you can disagree. You just then would have to explain why God didn't reveal this to anybody in the Old Testament.
Right. Yeah.
This idea of a separated waiting place. It only got developed, the concept of separated conscious waiting place got developed in the intertestamental period. Do you know what the term Hellenistic means?
No.
It's like the influence the Greeks had.
The Greek influence, yeah. Oh, I thought I meant something else.
So, interestingly enough, the intertestamental period is highly influenced by Hellenistic perspectives. Highly. Why do you think in the New Testament, and again, the Pharisees are the ones that developed this. Why do you think in the New Testament they start referring to the afterlife for the unrighteous as Hades?
Yeah.
Hades is the Greek word for hell.
Right. Yeah, it's Greek.
They're incorporating Hellenistic concepts of the afterlife into their own understanding. And the Pharisees were very liberal with their influences. Like they were the ones that actually, that's why the Sadducees were Torah only, was because the Pharisees were like incorporating other things into the belief system.
Right.
So they were more like liberal in a way. I'm not saying they were liberal the way people say today. But you can see, it's interesting that after the Greeks started influencing the Jewish religious leaders in the Second Temple era, suddenly their perception of the afterlife becomes very Greek. It becomes a separated place, no longer just one area for the dead, Sheol. It becomes a separated place. It becomes Hades, and it becomes Abraham's bosom. You know, which is what the Greeks believed. They believed in a separated place for the souls. So it depends. If you take this as a parable, which I think there's a lot of evidence for, then it's not necessarily teaching you a truth of like the geography of the afterlife. But if this is real, then there's a chasm between Hades and Abraham's bosom. What about all the people that died before Abraham? What about Noah? Right?
Yeah.
Where's he at? Noah's bosom? What was there before Abraham?
Adam's bosom.
Adam's bosom? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Where does it stop? Where does it end? Let's go back to the chat because it's backed up now. Cam, our good buddy, I guess there's some talk about when you said that there's no word for hell in the Bible.
I didn't say there's no word for hell. I said the word hell doesn't exist in the Bible.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You did. Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So here's Cam. He gave us a verse in Matthew 25:41. Then he will also say to those on the left hand, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels." Prepared for the devil and his angels. Interesting. Mm-hmm. The same hell that the wicked are sent to is the one made for the devil and his angels. Yeah, I believe that too. But the question is like, so when does that happen? Does it happen right away, like right when you close your eyes and died, or are you in a place and waiting until that happens for the judgment? You know what? That's the question that we're trying to answer.
Yeah. So let me restate my position, just in case people came in after I already stated it. So it's not confusing. I'm not saying that there isn't a heaven and a hell. I'm not saying that there isn't like an eternal state. I'm not saying that there isn't a waiting place for souls after we die. I think that's all very, very clear in Scripture, right? What I'm saying is I don't believe that there is a conscious, separate waiting place for the dead right now when we die. I don't believe that there's a waiting place for the righteous dead and the unrighteous dead. I believe it's the Old Testament concept of Sheol. One place for the dead, unconscious, waiting for the day of judgment and resurrection. Some to life, some to eternal fire, Yeah. And that passage in Matthew agrees. I agree with it.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a resurrection, some into glory and some into torment.
Right.
Right. And that hell is not where people are waiting right now for judgment. That's a later event. They get thrown into there.
Yeah.
Let me see. There was something else.
Well, hang on. He wants us to read the Apostles' Creed.
I don't care. Listen, I'm sticking to the Bible. I don't care about the Apostles' Creed. I'm just sticking to passages in the Bible. If you got more of those, hit me. I don't care. I'm not trying to be like flippant or rude. I just want to stick to the authority. Okay, because you know what the creed did? I don't know if it might be the Apostles' Creed. You know what they inserted? You know how we just read those passages about leading captives free, Abraham's bosom, and then the other one, I can't remember right now. You know what they did in the creed? And he descended into hell.
Yeah, well, he says, he descended into hell. The third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended into heaven.
Cool. So that's not in the Bible. It doesn't say that he descended into hell. Oh, that's what it was, Dennis. He preached the gospel to those who are dead
in prison,
and he went and I think proclaimed victory to the spirits in prison. We already dealt with this. Prison is not hell. Prison is where the angels who copulated with the daughters of men are imprisoned. It's called Tartarus. Well, the New Testament calls it Tartarus.
So he went to go preach to the fallen angels.
I don't think he preached to the fall. I don't think it says that he preached to the fallen angels.
He says he proclaimed. Angels. So was it proclaiming like I won? Yeah.
He proclaimed what?
Victory.
I believe that. He probably went to them and he was like, "Hey, so you remember when you guys try to like inhabit the world with your seed, your demonic seed?"
Isn't this what Heiser says? Isn't this what he believes?
That's what Heiser says.
Yeah.
So
I remember that.
So check it out. you lost.
Yeah.
That's what I think he did.
Yeah. And there's a comment here that says, I proclaim to the spirits in prison. Some interpret this as Jesus is preaching to the dead or fallen angels. Others say it's referred to him proclaiming victory and not giving a chance at salvation. And then there's Ephesians 4. He ascended on high. He led hosts. Oh, we just read that. Acts 2:31.
Hold on. What is it? Ephesians 4. He ascended on high. He led captives.
Hosts of captives. He had also descended into the lower regions.
Yeah.
The earth. Not of the earth. This is ESV. So this is important. He also descended into the lower regions, the earth. That makes sense to me. That doesn't mean hell for me. I used to read this.
That could mean burial.
That to me is the earth. Yeah.
That could mean his
tomb.
Incarnation. He descended to earth.
Yeah.
Or the lower parts of the earth.
Not of the earth, to the lower parts, the earth. Not to see. That's why that comma is important there. And I haven't checked in other translations, but
we have dealt with that passage. So if you guys want, after this goes live, just go back like 30 minutes or so. We have dealt with that one, and it's a quote from Psalm 68. And Peter changes the language a little bit to make a point. But was there anything else? Any other passages?
We got more. How did I get there? Shoot. Dude, do you know how many windows I have open up? It's crazy right now. I don't even know where I'm
Dude,
at.
if your computer crashes, that would suck. Post some old stuff. While you do that, let me read this. Abraham's bosom is not found in the Old Testament or in other pre-Christian literature.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
By that exact phrase. But the concept that the righteous are gathered to Abraham to rest in the care of their forefathers was present in Jewish tradition. Okay? Genesis 25:8. When he died, he was gathered to his people. 4 Maccabees 13:7. Speaking of the martyrs being with the patriarchs after death. 1 Kings 2:10. Then David slept with his forefathers and was buried in the city of David. And there's a ton of passages that talk about sleeping with his fathers or gathered to his people, that kind of language. That when the Old Testament Jews would die, they would go be with their forefathers. But Sheol often was seen as an unconscious place of waiting. Unconscious, not conscious. And that's the distinction. And that's my understanding, or that's my belief too, is that it is an unconscious place of waiting. What else do you got in there, Dennis?